Hi there, and welcome to the While You Wait podcast. We work to bring you stories of humanity, care, and hope from across the Arkansas healthcare landscape, all while you wait to start your day. Our series is hosted by the staff of the Arkansas Behavioral Health Integration Network, a local nonprofit dedicated to better health for all through integration. Today, we have Project Manager Caitlin Johnson and Misty Trent as your hosts. On today's episode, we explore education, teachers, and resiliency. The landscape of education is changing every day, and with change comes inherent stress put on our teachers. Today we have the privilege of speaking with Stacy Pendergrast with AFMC, who will share her experience as a teacher, the work she's doing to support our Arkansas educators, and resources that are available right now. We will get into that in just a moment, but of course we are a new podcast, so please remember to subscribe and share wherever you do get your podcast. Also feel free to drop us a note at ABHINETWORK.org, ABHINnetwork.org, for any feedback, questions, or episode suggestions. With that housekeeping done, let's get started with the episode. Welcome back to the While You Wait podcast. We're so excited to share today's topic with you. We're going to be talking about teachers and teacher resiliency. And I think that's a pretty important topic, especially with all the changes that are going on right now. But before we get started, I have another co-host I'd like to introduce. Misty Trent's here with me today. Usually we have Megan, but I get to share the love today. So Misty, do you mind introducing yourself and telling our listeners about you?
Sure. Thanks, Caitlin. Happy to be here. My name is Misty Trent. I am a project coordinator with ABHIN. I work on several federal projects. So my background actually is mainly in business management. And then about 10 years ago, I was working as an office manager for Community Mental Health Clinic, and the light bulb kind of went off. And I loved that population. So I went back to school, received my bachelor's in social work last year, and pursuing my master's in social work, which I'll graduate next year. So excited to help integrate behavioral health into Arkansas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you follow us online, you'll know how excited and how proud we are of Misty with her recent graduation from her bachelor's program and her starting her master's degree. She's going to be a huge asset to this field. So we're just very excited to have her on our team. Thanks for joining us for this conversation, Misty. So today we have a guest who has been working in the education field for a long time. She's going to share with us all kinds of information, kind of what the education field looks like right now, how it is for teachers, and how to foster some of the resiliency that we need just really in any career field, but especially with the education field right now. So I'm going to turn it over to Stacy. Stacy, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, Caitlin and Misty. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm Stacy Pendergrast, and I am through and through a teacher. I spent 3 decades in the classroom. Most of my career was in the public schools in New Jersey. I am a special educator. I've worked in every grade level from kindergarten all the way through high school. I also spent a lot of time in a vocational high school. Then I retired from public school in New Jersey, and I came to Arkansas, and I taught 3 more years as a special educator in Arkansas in Fayetteville Public Schools. And from there, I've come to AFMC with this 30 years plus of background in education. And my title is Teacher Support Program Lead. And I don't know, maybe I can tell your listeners a little bit about AFMC, which is Arkansas Foundation for Medical Care. Uh-huh. So we are a nonprofit organization, a healthcare organization with a mission to promote excellence in health and healthcare. Our headquarters is in Little Rock, and we also have another office in Fort Smith. AFMC has been in the business of healthcare since 1972. So they've been in it longer than I've been in teaching. And they've recently taken a step into the education world with a SAMHSA Aware grant, where they've got involved in, they're involved in community and schools. And they are very interested from a healthcare standpoint in supporting Arkansas teachers
Mm-hmm.
as a way to support Arkansas students. So this has been a new foray into education that they've taken, and we're very excited about the support that they're lending to our Arkansas teachers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And ABHIN is actually a partner with AFMC on the AWARE grant. For about the past 2 years. It's a 5-year project getting into the rural schools and just really seeing how big the need is. So we're super excited for that partnership.
Yes, and I also want to emphasize that what we're going to talk about today, our major support, which is the Arkansas Teacher Support Helpline, that's actually an idea and innovation straight from AFMC that's not a part of the AWARE grant. So this is the company investing in Arkansas teachers and students with their own innovative idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we're grateful for that. Kind of like what we were talking about before we got on. I've worked with some part of AFMC for the last 10 years, and they are the whole team is innovative. They always provide some kind of educational. The ACES conference that you guys put on is very educational. And my background is not with adolescents or youth. I choose not to work with that population just because I don't know a whole lot about it. So I'm so grateful that there are people like you and AFMC out there that have such a passion for helping our kiddos, because they are. It's not just what they can do for us, but they are our future. They're going to be our doctors and our teachers and our nurses and our engineers and that. So it's important that we foster not just their educational but their emotional health as well. And I feel like that starts with teachers, right? The teachers that are in the classrooms with them. So. Okay. I did not realize that you were from all over the place. I didn't realize you were from the East Coast. So, welcome to the South. I mean, a little bit late. You've been here for a little bit, but I did not realize you were from the East Coast.
Well, actually, I consider myself from here because a little bit of a story. I grew up in Memphis and Little Rock and moved to our whole family moved to the Northeast, to New Jersey, New York metro area when I was 14. And I came back to do some research on my roots, refell in love with Arkansas, and have moved back.
It has a way of doing that to you.
After 42 years away, actually.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you chose to come back to Arkansas because, previously in some of our conversations, we talked about just all kinds of stuff that's going on with the teachers right now and things that I didn't know, that Misty didn't know. So I'm excited to talk to you about those things. Particularly, I'm thinking about back to one of our previous conversations about just what the landscape for teachers right now is. And I know that you had mentioned that 1 in 12 Arkansas teachers are new. So they're coming out of college, they're starting their career maybe within the last 5 years or so. And I know that there is a significant concern for teacher shortages. Can you talk a little bit about what the impact of that is statewide? What does it mean when we have mostly new teachers coming through? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Arkansas is no different from anywhere else. I mean, this is a national problem. Mm-hmm. Teacher stress is our teachers are stressed. It's a nationwide issue. I think we just started to talk about it during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. That shined a light on it and it brought it to the surface, but things have not gotten too much better since the pandemic. According to the latest 2024 RAND State of the Teacher Survey, 60% of U.S. teachers they're saying they're burned out.
Wow.
And 25% say they cope with work-related stress regularly. And those are, that's similar to what we're seeing in Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Overall, compared with comparable working adults, twice as many teachers report experiencing frequent burnout, and 3 times as many teachers reported difficulty with job-related stress as compared to other comparable working adults. So, mm-hmm. in other words, 3 times stressed as most other type of what we would call white-collar types of teachers, service-oriented professions. Mm-hmm. And we also know that teachers work longer, and that's also true of our Arkansas teachers. Mm-hmm. 53 hours per week, compared with standard 44 hours a week and about 9 of those hours are beyond their contracted day. So they're working in very stressed conditions. They come home at night and they're stressed again at night. So,
And many of them use their own funds, right, to help kind of support some of their programs in their classrooms on top of all of that.
yeah, not to mention a lot of our teachers are women and they're moms too. So we
Yeah.
have that as a
Mm-hmm.
sector, and so they've got to juggle their childcare at home. So there's a huge ripple effect. Um, and we also, the Bureau of Legislative Research, that was given to our legislators in 2024, it's called the Advocacy Study. It
Mhm.
found that 33% of Arkansas teachers are considering leaving the profession.
So I know, and just a little bit of a personal tidbit here. My best friend is a teacher. She has multiple degrees in education, and she's recently left the field too, exactly for the reason of the stress of teaching. So I'm just wondering, if this is happening to her in an urban area where there's just a little bit more support sometimes. What's happening across the state? I mean, like, what are other teachers considering leaving the profession?
Caitlin, your friend is not unusual. The Bureau of Legislative Research's 2024, that's recent, advocacy study found that 33% of Arkansas teachers are considering leaving the profession. And for the reasons of stress, workload, and a lack of respect for their work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And that's
we've
on
got to
top of the
do
shortage
something.
already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. So there are plenty of reasons to help our Arkansas teachers. If you think about, you want your teacher of your child coming to work every day and feeling supported,
Right.
feeling that they have the resources to handle the job, feeling that they have time at the end of the day to recharge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what AFMC is thinking about and wondering what we can do to help them.
Mm-hmm.
I love that because I have children in school. So if these teachers are coming to work every day, they're already exhausted. They don't feel supported. How are they able to give their all to the kiddos? I mean, I know they still fight through and they do a very good job, but imagine what they could do if they felt supported and well rested.
Mm-hmm. I like the fact that you talked about the ripple effect, Stacy, because that's what I was thinking too when you were talking about how they're putting in almost 55 hours a week and then going home and like you said, a lot of our teachers are women, so they're the natural caregivers of the family most of the time. They have probably several children, a partner, having to run their household, those types of things, and that is the ripple effect. So that the teachers coming to school, they're stressed, they are going home exhausted, sometimes unable to interact and enjoy their family and their children as much as they would like to, and unable to maybe interact with their partner as much. And I'd hate to take it back to money, but that also affects the economy, right? Like it's not just the family unit that it's affecting, which is extremely concerning, but they're also not going out and stimulating their community economy as well because they're tired. There's no time to do stuff like that too. So just the ripple effect, I think, goes beyond what a lot of people are considering, how this affects people. I'm wondering if there is a different level of cohesiveness when it comes to rural teachers and urban teachers. Like, is there, because of it being rural, is it because the community is smaller, is there a little bit more cohesiveness and support, or is there in urban areas, is there just because there's so many more people, is it more supportive? But that may be so niche that we don't know.
Well, it's what I've heard from teachers so far is from some of our rural teachers, they if they haven't been there very long, in some of the rural areas, teachers have been there. The other teachers have been there for a long time. There's kind of a set culture.
Oh yeah.
And so it becomes hard to break into that set culture. And when there's fewer colleagues, there's fewer to reach out to. And it takes a while to establish yourself, just like, moving into a new neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not completely sure if that's, I guess in urban areas, if they're bigger, there's more teachers to reach out to. There's more people who can
That makes
reach out
sense.
and step out of their comfort zone and
Yeah.
invite you into smaller groups. So
Well, That's
it may be
exactly
more
what
difficult in rural areas. We'll
yeah.
have to ask our teachers and have them tell us. That's a great question
Exactly.
for our
Agreed.
survey.
Mhm.
I That's exactly what I was going to say. My sister-in-law and a couple of my friends are teachers, and these little rural schools, it's much like high school, right? They grew up there, they went to school, they came back, they're teachers there. So when these newer, maybe from out of town teachers come in there, it's very cliquish, and it's kind of hard to, like you said,
Break
get
in,
exactly.
break into the
Yeah.
culture.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
I've even heard teachers say that in the staff room there's set seats where people
Right.
sit
Wow.
at lunch, right?
Yep.
And you don't know the norms that you're violating.
Yeah.
You go and sit down in the wrong seat, you don't know what you're violating. Now, you know, granted, teachers are a service-oriented group, and they are the people to reach out, but they are so stressed and so busy with the
Exactly.
constant demands that they face in the myriad of decisions that they have to make, constantly throughout the day, that sometimes, first on their mind are the other students.
Mhm.
And so it may be asking them too much to think outside. What about their colleagues when they're managing their students' needs?
Mhm. Wonderful point. Wonderful point. I think about it too is like, with I've treated a couple of teachers, and I just, what comes to mind when I'm talking to them is like survival mode. They're in
Yes.
survival mode, and it's really hard. It may come off as, like, oh, we don't want to let you into the circle, but like, think of that. They know these people. They feel safe with these people that they already talked to. That's biological survival. That's what that is. So looking at someone new, it is kind of hard to break that thought cycle of how do I take care of my classroom, how do I take care of my students and my family, and also, like Stacy said, bring this new colleague in and worry about their emotional health too, which obviously, humanity wise we should, but like sometimes it just doesn't work, that we are not
Yes.
in a system sometimes that allows us to do that.
When your mental
Yes.
capacity is at its max, it's
Yeah.
hard to think about anything else.
Yeah, I mean, in survival mode, you say to yourself, I can't have another student,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like, meaning the teacher colleague is another student, like another person to
Right.
take care of. It's hard for me to take care of someone else. I
Mhm.
do want to make a point though, and that is, we know that in Arkansas, from a U of A research brief that was done in 2024, that
Mhm.
86% of our teachers are happy with being an educator. It's
Oh.
not that they think that they made the wrong decision.
Mhm.
That's truly what they want to be doing. And if even though a third of them are thinking about leaving the profession, it's not because they don't want to be an educator. It's
Mhm.
because they are feeling that they can't handle the demands
Yeah.
sufficiently. They can't live up to their own expectations for what being an educator is.
Mhm.
Stacy, that is a very powerful statistic right there. I
Mhm.
think that says it all to the
Yeah,
level
yeah.
of, or the lack of support.
Teachers want to be there. They want to be doing their job. They want to be serving youth.
Well, and I think what an important distinction, like Misty is pointing out, is when you think back to the teachers that you've had, either in grade school or in college, the teachers end up being so much more than just instructors, right? Like I can't tell you. I mean, I played sports in high school, and in our small rural towns, usually our coaches are also teachers, right? So they're usually playing dual roles. And I don't know how many times I would go to them about different things, like different adolescent things, like I'm stressed out about my boyfriend, or I'm stressed out about this test I have in algebra, whatever it is. There's so much more than just coming to work and teaching and like telling someone how to do something and leaving. There's such an emotional interaction and responsibility that's innate to the teaching profession that I think might be overlooked sometimes, especially when we're looking at like resources and how big the load is. It's not just lesson plans and grading and having 30 children in your classroom. It's also the emotional side that happens. And I know just from listening to my friend talk, is just like the emotional connection you get with these children as well. This is this is much more than a service relationship, in the sense of like, you come in, I give you something and you leave. This is a relationship that's fostered, especially if you're in a place where the kids are following you through the entire grade school career. Just something I want to mention too is that when teachers are signing up to join this profession, there is not as far as I know, a special clause in whatever contract they're taking that they have to be more committed or more give more of their body and soul to it than any other job, like you're talking about. Like when I entered the profession of social work, I expect to be able to work my 40 hours a week and then be able to go do the things that I need to do on my personal time. Right now with teachers working, 55 hours a week is astronomical, and probably more, that they're not even reporting. That they didn't sign up for that. They deserve the same amount of freedom that a lot of these other professions do. And it's not just because that they signed up for this. It is a hard job. Not just because they signed up for this hard job. They should be allowed the same time to do the things that they need to do to rejuvenate themselves and to build that resiliency as any other profession does,
one thing we hear, right, in social work is self-care.
Yeah.
Like if we're not able to take care of ourselves, we're not going to be able to take care of our clients. And I think that is the same with teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the view of teachers, it goes back to, our early days in this country. The apple for the teacher was when the teacher was paid an apple for the, coming to the home and teaching. So, teachers are women. And so we expect women to give and give and give. That's just rooted in our society. And so that all overlays, into the profession.
I love that. You're right. It's there's so many layers to this. So y'all know me. I don't like talking about a problem without some kind of a solution to it. Not that we shouldn't talk about problems, but I really, if we're going to talk about it at this length, I like to come up with some ideas that can help some of the things that are going on. So one of the questions that I have is related to that self-care aspect that Misty was talking about is how do we, the way to get through it, or the way to deal with it, is to get through it, right? And to get through some adversity and some stress and really difficult times is building that resiliency, right? That everyone has to have some level of resiliency. So when we are considering those that are maybe wanting to leave the profession, or just experiencing burnout but have no way out, or whatever it is, can you talk about a little bit of what resiliency is, what it can look like in teachers, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about some strategies to foster that?
Yes. Well, there's all the typical self-care strategies that we could talk about. But there's a couple of basic things, and this is behind our Arkansas Teacher Support Helpline, which I want to get into here in just a second.
Mm-hmm.
But the basic human action is let's talk.
Mm-hmm.
And there's to begin, just putting feelings into words can actually reduce the force of unpleasant emotions. And this is borne out by research. There's, lots of research. I'll just name one. Dan Siegel at UCLA School of Medicine has a great study out there you can find. It's by naming what we are feeling, we reduce the intensity of that emotion, and then we feel less overwhelmed. So number one, do teachers have someone to talk to? Do they have someone to talk to that understands what they're going through? There's one thing to talk to someone who hasn't stood in front of a classroom and seen a classroom fall apart and go to pieces in front of them.
Yep.
It's another thing to find that person who can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
Then we also know there's also a large body of research, and it's going back to the 1980s and 90s through today, that tells us that talking specifically about our stress and our problems to someone else relieves stress. So the first thing is they need somebody to talk to, just in general.
That's fair.
But if you can talk to someone who has walked in your shoes, that is extremely helpful. And that's the theory behind our Arkansas Teacher Support Helpline.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I can take a minute or two to talk about that.
Please, yes.
Please.
That's one of the shining stars of the conversation. We want people to know about it.
So at AFMC, we have launched a helpline, and it's available right now. It's available from noon to 5. We're thinking about changing those hours, and we're conducting some focus groups with teachers across the state to see how we might tweak those hours and be more available. But we're up and running now between those hours, and it is staffed by veteran teachers. I'm being one of them, and I have a colleague who's also assisting with this. And we are listening peer to peer to listen to whatever a teacher wants to bring to our ear in the moment, to help them navigate what their biggest stressors are in the moment. Um, we have taken a lot of time and done a lot of research to structure a protocol that we use on the phone. So it's not just a vent session, although we do encourage teachers to vent, just vent away because that feels good. We don't want to stay stuck in venting, so we do have this protocol. And the first is just saying hello, connecting with the person on the other end. And by the way, this is can be anonymous. It is totally confidential. We don't share any of the content with anyone else. It's only kept internal records inside the company. Um, but the first question we ask to the caller is on a 1 to 10 scale, with 1 being the lowest stress you've ever felt and 10 being the highest. How would you rate your stress level at this moment?
Ooh.
And Caitlin and Misty, I find that even just from the beginning of asking that question, for a teacher to pause and evaluate where they are in their stress level, that already gets them to take a step aside and gets them to look at their problem in a neutral way,
Yes.
just to evaluate the stress level. It's like being in the hospital and someone asks about what level is your pain. We're asking what level is your pain in terms of your stress.
Well, and also just how are you feeling? I mean, that's basic. Someone's asking them, right? It's not take,
Yes.
someone else taking from them. It's actually someone asking, like, how are you?
Yeah.
On a 1 to 10 scale.
Setting that tone, right?
Right.
Like instead of what are you doing wrong? What can you do to
Mhm.
improve? It's I really care about you, the individual. Tell me how you're feeling. So have you seen that set the tone for these conversations, Stacy? How does that usually work out?
Yeah, it's kind of amazing because usually there is a reflective moment, and they'll even think about, well, I mean, there was a time that I was giving birth in the hospital, that was maybe a 10. But how does this compare? But I have to tell you, from the calls we've gotten, there's a fair number that are up there, 7, 8,
Sure.
9.
Mhm.
Haven't had a 10 yet, but um and from there, the next step of the call is to empathize. So this is the protocol we use is HEARS, so that the question about the stress level is in the H, the hello, and then we start to emphasize. And it's a simple open-ended question: what's going on?
Mhm.
Tell us what's going on. What in this moment? What are you experiencing? And we, at that point, we're really listening. And the next step is ask. So we're asking open ended questions. We don't want to advise, we're not going to jump in, we're not going to tell someone what to do. But we want to ask questions so that the caller can hear themselves frame the problem and think about the who, what, when, where, what actually is going on.
Mhm.
So I just have a quick question. Yes, you've been an educator for over 30 years, but it sounds like maybe you've received some additional training on some of these techniques to be able to share with these teachers who call in.
Well, actually, I have, and I do want to say, aside from my work at AFMC, I also for 3 years I've been a volunteer at the Trevor Project.
Mm.
Okay.
So I take text and chat calls from youth in crisis. So I did have some personal training there, which also I will have to say that impacted as we developed this protocol. In my years in the classroom in New Jersey, I went through some life-changing training at Annenberg Institute, which was called Critical Friends Group Training. And we learned how to sit in a circle with other teachers, with other peers, and to listen to dilemmas, professional dilemmas that they were facing. And there are a lot of professional dilemmas that a teacher can face on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis, and ask open-ended, what we called probing questions. And the idea of a probing question is not for the questioner to get information; it's for the presenter of the problem to look at their situation and to think, to open up their mind about the dilemma, the professional dilemmas that they're facing. And the last letter of the HERE's protocol is the S, which is simply summarize. So we summarize what we talked about on the call. We summarize what next steps the teacher may have come to on their own. Again, we don't give advice. And often in that last step, they think about what the very next thing they're going to do to help themselves, to give themselves some self-care. So that's part. So summarize and self-care is the very last step.
I love that. I love ending every conversation with a discussion about self-care.
I know the last time we talked, you said that for Arkansas specifically, it was about 58% of the teachers, one of their biggest stressors is behavior management.
Yes. It's actually, that comes from the University of Arkansas study that they did in 2024. So they did a pretty big study. They surveyed, I don't have the exact number in front of me, quite a large number of teachers across Arkansas. It's 56% cite managing student behavior is their number one problem. And I would say that that's been a fair number of the calls that we've gotten. Student behavior has entered into it. Of course, just common sense. You've got 20 kids in front of you. They're all coming with all kinds of
I struggle with two.
Yeah, right. And and think of managing that group with all the problems that are impacting them as human beings that they come to in the morning. I mean, some of them haven't had breakfast, some of them are grouchy, some of them are facing really difficult home challenges, just the gamut. And now you've got to organize them and get them to learn, help them learn, motivate them. That's a difficult problem.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
That you face on an ongoing basis every single day. That's your job. That's what a teacher's job is. So, of course, managing student behavior is at the top of their list. And sometimes they are facing some things that are very, very stressful.
I know you said that some of the calls have been based on that, and I think we've talked a little bit of what I can imagine that the stress of calling in, the thought of calling in is maybe a little daunting to some people, especially when it comes to the behavior management stuff, because sometimes someone's going to tell you, well, you should just know how to do that. You should just know how to do that. You're a teacher. You went to school for this. And that's truly not. And I'm listening to you talk, Stacy, and look, you went outside and found all this extra education on behavioral modification and education for yourself, for our professionals, not even just for the children. So I think it speaks to our new teachers that are coming out. They're not going to know everything. They're not, and they shouldn't. This is there's so much on the job knowledge and institutional knowledge that you get just from being around other teachers, asking these questions. And right now, due to just kind of the culture shifting that's going on and some of the climate that's going on, they may not feel as safe asking these questions or reaching out. So one of the things, I know you're talking about the structure in which they call in, which I think is in itself huge. It's not just, again, to your point, this is not a venting session. You absolutely can. And that is an important part. We even have studies that show that helps with it. But there's a method to this, and it's to help you resolve some of that stress, right?
Yes, I think part of what we do is, after the event, after the analyzing, after all the questions, one of the questions that we ask is, okay, what piece of this can you control today?
Love that.
Let's keep it at, that good old AA 12-step idea of,
What can I control? Yep.
one day at a time. Let's
Yep.
stay in the day. Let's stay in the moment.
Yes.
What's the next thing after you hang up this phone? What's the next thing that you can do to relieve your stress? Um, what's the next step you can take that's positive? Maybe it's information gathering. Maybe it's walking down the hall to talk, talking to a colleague. Who in the building do you think you would you trust to talk more about this problem? That's another thing. Identify who's in your support group right here and now. And also, you mentioned something, Caitlin.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers feel that they should be the experts. They should have all the answers. Teachers are supposed to have the answers.
Right. Literally,
And
that's the
and
that's the
and
job.
they and often we don't want to admit that we're having difficulty managing a student relationship or a whole class of relationships.
Yeah.
That is admitting defeat, and sometimes even veteran teachers don't want to admit. Actually, sometimes a veteran teacher more so wouldn't want to admit it. Oh, you've been teaching for 10 years and you don't know how to handle this. You haven't
Yeah.
figured that out yet. So that's another advantage of calling our helpline is it's anonymous. We don't know who they are. They don't know who we are. We're, except that we've spent a lot of time in the classroom. And let's talk about with this with someone that is not going to walk down and
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to call somebody in their school and talk to them
Good
about
idea.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the fear. What if I tell someone else what I'm experiencing that that I feel I can't handle it, and they talk to an administrator,
Mm-hmm.
or they know somebody who says something to someone else, and it gets back to an administrator, and that jeopardizes my job. So
Yeah.
the confidentiality piece is really important.
I mean, they don't even have to say their real name, right? I mean, I think I remember
No,
you saying like this doesn't have to be you tell me what school you're at, you even tell me your real name.
no, no. We do ask for our own demographics, our data collection, what county they're in. That's it. Often teachers tell us more about themselves, but we don't write that down, and we don't collect that for any information. They just, teachers want to tell us about what they're experiencing and what kind of situation they're in,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they don't have to. As a matter of fact, I will often say, go ahead, give me an alias,
Yeah.
so that we can use names. They'll say, okay, I'll give you my middle name, or something like that, or they'll give you the name that I want it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, inherently there's just so much trust in calling the line and really getting even the courage to call the line. And so I think anyone listening, hearing just how understanding you are and how I mean, you're one of the people that picks up the phone and how empathetic you are. But I think one of the biggest things that I'm hearing about the helpline and about your approach is just empowerment, right? And I think that is going to help foster that resiliency as well, is when you give the tools to someone who can replicate it over and over again, right? This is not the only time that they're going to go through something stressful. So let's talk about something sustainable. Obviously, we're taking it one day at a time, but this is an approach that you can replicate over and over again. So it sounds like you guys are putting a big emphasis on empowering these teachers to be able to replicate this later on.
Yes. Also, by the way, there's no limit on the number of times you can call the
I
helpline.
love
So if
that.
you want to, if
Nice.
you want to call us today and we help you, we talk you through today, and you want to call back tomorrow and we talk through tomorrow,
Yeah.
you want to call us after that fifth period class that makes you tear your hair out,
Yeah.
go ahead and we'll call us every day after that class. That is totally fine.
Oh, goodness.
Is this for just specific schools or specific counties, or is this statewide? Can
Oh,
any teacher from anywhere in Arkansas call this helpline?
all you have to be is from Arkansas. You can be a preschool teacher, a kindergarten teacher, a middle school teacher, high school. You can be a teacher in higher ed. And also, you don't have to be a teacher. You can be someone else in the school that works with children
Oh,
and youth.
nice.
Okay, you can be a counselor. You could be the cafeteria worker. who is having behavior issues with a certain student that comes in every day, or you know, I've had a teacher call in and say, I'm noticing something about a student and I'm not sure that I need to call the hotline. You know, I mean, you can talk through other actions that you want to take before you take them. Like, you know, you're going to take a certain action, but you want to talk to someone before you take that action. You can be a bus driver and you notice that a student is without a coat, and you wonder what you might want to do. So basically, this helpline, it says teacher support line, but you know, everybody who works in a school is supporting teachers and supporting those students. So if in any way you are working in education, in related in any way to a classroom, we will listen to you. Now, I haven't been a bus driver and I haven't been a cafeteria worker, but I sure have worked with a lot of them uh, in ways that support youth. So I think we can have empathy and we can think about those groups as well.
For sure. I'm so glad you asked that question, Misty. What an important distinction there is. Anyone who's working in a educational field can call and just ask for help with that and ask for feedback on that.
I would imagine with the current landscape, the stressors are all over the school, right? I mean, we are focusing on the teachers today, but I think that can be applied for all school staff.
Because that speaks to just like the culture and the attitude within the school, right? So maybe it's not necessarily the teachers in one setting that needs more help. Maybe it is the bus driver, maybe it's the administrators, or whatever it is, to help support the mental health of their teachers and the resiliency that the teachers are able to foster. Which leads me to my next question: is just like looking ahead. And we want to continue to build on this foundation of support for teachers. And that, is there an idea of what maybe school administrators or maybe school leadership can do to help just normalize conversations like this for some of these educators? Is there something that we can do to support them a little bit more?
Well, I think, first of all, some of the teachers who have called have said that their administrators, their principals specifically, or superintendent has mentioned the helpline. So they're feeling that sanction from above. I also think that our school leaders can just simply acknowledge that this is a time of change in education. And we've talked earlier about systemic change. We have the Learns Act, whether, there's parts of it you like or parts of it you don't like, or you'd like to see changed or tweaked or whatever. It is change. And change equals stress. And I think to acknowledge that we are enduring a large scale era of change. We are also in a political environment that is changing and is stressed. I think we can all at least acknowledge that.
Yes.
Whatever you feel about what's going on politically. We do in this University of Arkansas study. This was in 2024, before the election. 18% of teachers surveyed felt that there were political intrusions in the classroom. So I think just to state the obvious and not to ignore it, I think that helps.
Right. Address it either way.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to be walking around and not talking about problems, right? And not admitting what we're facing. The first step to do something, to make something better, is always to face the challenges that you have right in front of you.
Right. And community is one of those ways to face it, right? I know from my own training, one of the things that we went over with any intervention, like there's a saying that you can know all the interventions, you can know all the practice theories, but if you don't know your patient, you're really not going to make a difference. And I think one of the things that about knowing your patient, or knowing the teachers that we talk to, is is normalizing knowing that there's other people out there that feel this way, because there's such a, logically we'll know that, right? Like we're not going to be the only ones that feel a certain way about something, but it can feel really isolating sometimes when you're not in an environment that acknowledges these things, right? And they're just kind of keeping it to themselves, or maybe compartmentalizing it for their own survival, and ability to get through the day. So I think the point that you're making about the helpline is just like, you call in. Well, you are not the first person to have this problem. You won't be the last. And here's some ways that we can problem solve. And you call me every day if you need to.
This microsite is built around the 4 pillars of resiliency, which are biological wellness, psychological wellness, social wellness, and meaning and purpose. And we have some downloadable resources. Some resources are for teachers. Some are for teachers and for classrooms to like pull your kids into some resiliency activities. And so we're hoping we're going to be, we launched that this past fall, and we're adding to it all the time. So we're hoping to make it more robust as we hear what our teachers are asking for. We're going to be adding resources based on what they need.
I know you said that you're having focus groups. Are those already, have you already decided who is going to be in those? Or if somebody was interested maybe in providing feedback or being part of those, is there a way that they could do that?
100%. They can also call the, may as well just call the Now Peer number as well, if they are interested in forming a focus group that will inform us. So we're doing some listening groups around the state. We're trying to hit different areas. We've got 4 or 5 planned now. It's just very simple. Either one 45-minute session or 2 30-minute sessions. We come, we talk about, we do a little role play of a call, and then we have some questions related to the stressors that teachers are experiencing, actually the 15 stressors that came out in that U of A survey. And we talk about what they're actually experiencing and compare to that study. And we will then take their feedback about the helpline and adjust and revise our helpline services accordingly.
So it sounds like this is just the very beginning. We're just getting in on the ground level, and this helpline and the real website is just going to continue to grow to help support teachers.
Yeah, we launched last fall, and a lot of people still don't know about us. That's why we thank you for getting the word out here through your podcast. We're just trying to spread the word. It's kind of, I'm getting a little marketing and communications education about how this works. So
it's inherent, for sure.
I'm developing some skills along those lines as well. So we really appreciate any opportunity to get it out. But the number one thing is, if teachers call and they feel like they get some relief, they're going to tell their colleague down the hall. Mm-hmm. And we really believe that word of mouth will spread this. Going back to the original question about that, how much stress are you experiencing on a 1 to 10 scale? Mm-hmm. And every single call that we've gotten, teachers have self-assessed, and their stress level has gone down.
By the end of the call?
It's gone down a point, but often it's gone down for 3 or 4 points just in the span of a 20, 30-minute phone call.
Oh, that's great. So it really works, is what you're saying.
Yeah. It seems that it works.
It does. Oh my goodness. Well, I know we have talked about this at length, but there's so much more that we could talk about. I think the message that we're also getting to is that there are resources out there. There's a lot of problem solving that we can do, but it has to start with a conversation. So giving a call to the helpline is kind of one of the first things that you can do, because it's not going to be a one size fits all. It's going to be, let's be creative. Let's do this on a micro basis where we can create a plan that is unique to you. So we really appreciate you coming on and talking about this, Stacy. I know that, Misty mentioned the grant that we partner with AFMC. So we have a mutual passion for helping these kids and helping sustain our teachers as well. So really appreciate all the expertise that you've given today. Again, we want to thank our guest Stacy and AFMC for lending her to us for the last hour. I also want to give a special thank you to my co-host Misty Trent for joining us on today's episode. And of course, thank you to our listeners for your time today. We hope we see you back for our future episodes of the While You Wait podcast. But make sure to follow us on social media, which includes Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and we now are introducing our Instagram profile, and you will be able to find any announcements of the While You Wait podcast on there. So feel free to share that or this episode with colleagues, friends, and family. Until next time, take care.